Hi, my name's Ken. I'm one of the co-founders of Speedscale, and I want to talk a little bit today about when you integrate large language models into your production code, how to deal with some of the performance challenges. You may notice that the word performance gets thrown around in a couple of different ways. Is my model returning good data? Is it quality? Is it hallucinating? That's one kind of performance. The other kind of performance is how long does it take to respond and how much throughput can I put through the model? And you may run into challenges like hitting rate limits or having huge costs associated with non-production transactions. You can use Speedscale in order to figure out what the performance profile is and then run tons of tests without driving up your bill. Let me show you some examples of what this looks like. So first you can capture some traffic. We have a sidecar, for example, that I use to capture traffic here. After a user logs in, they get a little welcome message. And we can see here, this is a simple JSON response that's returned to the user. And we can actually drill into what did ChatGPT do in order to generate this. So we can see that the specific response here, this is coming through the GPT 3.5 Turbo model. And we can see the original query that was sent and what prompt was used in order to generate this response. So this one is not too bad, but we can see the next call here is where a user generates an example image and it takes almost 10 seconds to respond. And 90% of that time this is the DALL-E 2 model to generate an image. So it takes about 9 seconds for that. We can see it's a really simple request. So go and generate a picture of a unicorn, and then it takes another half a second to download that image. And so when you're trying to put this kind of model, you got to think about how you want the user experience to work because they may not want to wait around for 10 seconds. So naturally, you want to go and run a test case. And one of the things you may find, this is an example of comparing the response of the model to what was captured previously. And you'll see there's actually minor differences that crop up here. This makes it really difficult to test the functionality of your own code because the backend system is responding in a different way each time. So this is a great case where you might want to do some service mocking, which we'll get to in a second. The next challenge you might run into is I set up one here to run a little load test. Nothing huge, but you can see I was able to run it over and over. And then after a couple of seconds, I hit this failure rate where the rate limit was exceeded. And actually, this ended up really impacting my test. So 30% of my calls had errors that was related to hitting this rate limit. So I want to use a service mock now. And with Speedscale, it's point and click. When you go and run your replay, you can say, mock out the backend system, and you can pick to mock one endpoint or multiple endpoints. Now, finally, I was able to get a run through. And again, nothing earth shattering. I just hit it with 10 virtual users worth of traffic. And I was surprised to find that the throughput, while it looked good for the first couple of minutes, after about 2.5 minutes, I started getting some errors. Well, we've already accounted for the fact that I'm mocking out the back-end calls. So I can drill into the specific success rate here and look for the failure calls. And I can see that at some point, a couple minutes in, instead of getting proper responses back to my request, I was getting timeouts. So under load, the system could not handle it and actually was running into problems. And this is an issue with my own code. So this, by simulating the ChatGPT endpoints, it helps me understand where am I having a problem? Is it in my own code or is it in this backend API? And now I can improve my own API so that I don't run into these kinds of timeout problems. And at a glance here, the other nice thing is I can see all the times where Speedscale has responded on behalf of these various endpoints, whether it was the image generation, the ChatGPT completion, or downloading of these specific images from the Azure block storage. So That's great. Mock services make it where I can do lots of additional testing and validate my own code. And I just want to highlight one other area. It's not just testing ChatGPT. We're using it ourselves in some cases, for example, to generate some sample data. Let's say I want to replace the recorded data with um, some generated emails and first and last names and just some sample stuff, like, for example, what shirt size and color users might want to use. So simply by filling out the form, we can go and use a large language model under the hood and generate this data for you. And it's trivial to set up. And you saw I was able to control and say, I want some users with different email addresses. They all get created. The usernames all sort of make sense based on the user here. And we didn't have to tell it what values to use for shirt size and color, and they get generated automatically. So at a glance, these are some of the different tools that you can use so that you can incorporate Gen AI into your own scenarios. If you've got any questions, please feel free to join our Slack community and reach out. I look forward to talking with you. Thank you.